So in this segment, we're going to be discussing the China's BYD blames Brexit and as it rules out the UK for the first electric car plant or their first electric car plant in Europe. So the world's largest seller of electric and hybrid cars will not consider building its first European car factory in the UK because of the impact of Brexit. BYD intends to take on household names such as Tesla and become one of the three most popular electric brands in Europe by the end of the decade. China's top-selling electric car maker, which is targeting sales of around 80,000 cars annually in Europe by 2030, has shortlisted locations in Germany, France, Spain, Poland, and Hungary. Saying, quote, "As an investor, we want a country to be stable. To open a factory is a decision for decades. Without Brexit, maybe, but after Brexit, we don't understand what happened," end quote. And that's from Michael Shu, BYD's European president, speaking to the Financial Times. And clearly they're looking at setting up a European hub given the amount of tariffs and checks they face in exporting from outside of Europe, the rules of origins, a whole shebang of paperwork, which is prohibitive. There's a lot of red tape. Saying the UK is effectively unstable is pretty accurate, but I think it would go beyond just Brexit. It would go for Tories as a whole being very chaotic. Look at the Truss budget, for example, the constant issues around the TCA, which would make selling UK-made cars to the EU a nightmare. Compare that to the EU, which is far more pro-car maker with lower costs in terms of, I think, staffing, better supply chains, and some member states which are more pro-manufacturing. They also have lower energy costs, for example, as well, which would be very helpful. You can see why the UK would lose out on Brexit-related issues and non-Brexit-related issues. Other countries are just built for the next manufacturing wave. But, let's look at the countries that were shortlisted. France makes some sense. It's not known as a manufacturing powerhouse, but that could be because manufacturing flies under the radar for them, or maybe they're just not a powerhouse. Germany is a manufacturing powerhouse, the well-known German engineering kind of thing. They've got Der Bauer as well, who's pretty cool. Spain are great at producing electric cars. So these three make sense. I think Spain produces around a fifth of Europe's electric vehicles. The lower energy costs make sense to set up shop in Spain. But for the UK to be below Hungary and Poland, who both have, court cases against them from the EU and rising authoritarianism with, dodgy judiciaries, to be less stable than them or to be perceived as less stable than them is perceived as wild, but possibly true. I mean, it shows you how far the UK's fallen. People always say, oh, these are third world countries, we should be doing better than them and all this nonsense, despite not really understanding what third world countries mean. But point being is it doesn't matter if it's a developing country, they can still be kind of strong in manufacturing sectors. But it shows you that these countries with court cases against them that are seen as authoritarian are seen as more stable than the UK. That's where I have an issue, because you can say that is true, and it's just a reality check of where the UK is now. That's all I'm going to say. BYD, which stands for Build Your Dreams, said the UK had not even made the top 10 list of possible countries to build its first European car plant. The company already makes buses in Europe. Mr. Shu said, quote, "The UK doesn't have a very good solution. Even on the long list, we didn't have the UK," end quote. And I wonder which countries were above us on the long list. I'll be honest. I would be very, very interested to see who made the cut above us, because I imagine it's probably all of the EU countries at this point. It's not, they're not the first manufacturer to have cited issues relating to Brexit in deciding not to expand business opportunities in the UK. Tesla's chief executive, Elon Musk, said in 2019 that the decision to leave the EU had made it too risky to build a gigafactory in the UK. The company built its first plant in Germany, where it created a research and development base. So despite Elon being a basket case on Twitter, it makes sense why battery makers would be looking to avoid setting up in the UK, because who are you going to sell the batteries to? And, when it comes to cars, who are you going to sell the cars to? Because if you sell them to the EU, if you build in UK and you sell them in the EU, it's going to cause you all sorts of problems with rules of origins and all the other checks. A free trade agreement doesn't mean trade is free. There's still paperwork and things like that involved. It's expensive. Paperwork is expensive. So why would you do that when you can set up shop in, say, Spain, where the energy costs are cheaper and they're more pro car manufacturer, and you can potentially you won't even need subsidies at that point because it's just that much cheaper to build in Spain versus the UK, where yes, you can get subsidies, but you're limited in who you can sell to, and it's much more expensive when it comes to energy, amongst other things. Where would you want to set up shop? It just makes sense for it not to be the UK, and this is multiple kind of car makers leaving the UK to either go to Europe or to kind of really figure out what they want to do next. And it's not great for us, I'll be honest. But anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, support the channel on Patreon if you can, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.